I am Patrick, 42 years old, and until recently I believed I had a good, steady life. I lived with my wife, Charlotte, and our two children, a 15-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. Our home was always warm, full of familiar sounds and simple routines. Charlotte cooked dinner every evening, the kids came back from school with stories to tell, and I returned from work tired but grateful. I often thought of myself as a lucky man. Charlotte was kind, patient, and gentle. She cared for all of us with a quiet strength that made everything feel safe. But life has a strange way of changing when we least expect it. One afternoon, after a long day at work, I came home feeling exhausted. A cough had been bothering me for 3 days, but I told myself it was just a small cold. I tried to ignore the tightness in my chest. When Charlotte looked at me, her eyes filled with concern. She touched my arm and said softly, "Patrick, you need to see a doctor. This isn't just a cold." I didn't argue. I was tired. I was careless. I had no idea that this simple moment, a cough, a worry, a small appointment with a doctor, would open the door to the biggest mistake of my life. Before everything fell apart, my days followed a simple and comforting rhythm. Every morning, I left for work early, carrying the familiar weight of responsibility on my shoulders. My job wasn't easy, long hours, constant deadlines, and the pressure to provide for my family, but I always told myself it was worth it. In the evenings, I returned home to the smell of Charlotte's cooking. She always prepared something warm, something thoughtful, something that reminded me I had a place where I belonged. After dinner, I usually sat with the kids. My daughter liked to tell me about her school projects, and my son always wanted me to help him with his games or homework. To them, I was the strong one, the steady one, the person who fixed every problem. Sometimes they even called me their hero, and I quietly enjoyed that feeling. Charlotte watched over me more carefully than I realized. If I looked tired, she would gently ask if I had eaten enough. If I coughed, she would put her hand on my back and tell me to rest. She always noticed what I tried to hide. But I didn't notice myself. I ignored my health, ignored the stress building inside me. I thought nothing could disturb the life we had built. I had no idea that one small illness would become the doorway to something much darker. The day I finally listened to Charlotte and went to the clinic was the day everything changed. I thought I only had a bad cold, maybe a simple infection, but when the doctor looked at my X-ray, his expression changed completely. He said my lungs were in bad condition. I had severe pneumonia and needed to be hospitalized immediately. His words hit me like a hammer. I had never stayed in a hospital before. I felt weak, scared, and strangely alone. When I arrived at the hospital, they placed me in a bed near the window. I tried to distract myself with a book, but my eyes couldn't focus. My chest hurt, and my thoughts felt heavy. Then the door opened, and she walked in, Martha, the nurse assigned to me. She was young, quiet, naturally beautiful in a soft, simple way. Her blue eyes were calm and kind. When she spoke, her voice felt like warm light in a cold room. "Patrick Miller," she said. Yes, I answered, trying not to sound nervous. You need rest and medication. Don't worry. We'll take care of you. I should have focused on her words, but instead, I found myself staring at her face, her hands, her gentle smile. I felt something inside me shift, something I wasn't proud of. Illness makes you vulnerable, makes you reach for anything that feels comforting. And Martha was comfort, kindness I didn't deserve. During my 5 days in the hospital, I waited for her footsteps in the hallway. I found myself sitting up straighter when she entered, pretending to be stronger than I was. She never acted inappropriate. She was polite, professional, but my heart wasn't. I learned she was married to a man named Andrew. I watched him sometimes when he came to pick her up after work. I felt jealousy burning in my chest, a shameful, heavy fire. On the day I was discharged, I asked for her number, just in case I had questions about my medication. She hesitated, then wrote it down. That small moment was enough for my lonely, confused mind to twist into something else. When I returned home, Charlotte hugged me so tightly. She had cooked my favorite soup. She touched my forehead and whispered, "I'm so glad you're home." But I barely felt her arms. My mind was still in the hospital, still with Martha. Days passed, and instead of recovering, I grew restless. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus. I only thought of Martha, her smile, her voice, the way she touched my wrist when checking my pulse. Finally, I made the worst decision of my life. I called her. "Hi Martha, it's Patrick. I need some injections. Can you help me privately?" She told me I could get them at the clinic, but I insisted. I begged. I made it sound urgent. I told her I would pay. At last, she agreed to come, when Charlotte was out and the kids were at school. When she arrived, I opened the door and acted on impulse, not reason. I hugged her. I kissed her. It was foolish, desperate, selfish. Martha pushed me away immediately. "Stop," she cried. "What are you doing?" Before I could answer, the front door opened. Charlotte stood there. Pale, silent, watching everything. She didn't shout. She didn't insult Martha. She simply helped her fix her clothes and whispered, "You can go." Then she turned to me and said one sentence that cut through my heart deeper than any scream. "You don't have to explain. I will leave. I will take the kids. We're done." And just like that, my entire life shattered. When Charlotte walked out of the house with the children, she closed the door quietly. No shouting, no final words. Somehow, that silence hurt more than anything I had ever felt. I stood there, frozen, listening to the sound of her footsteps fading away. When everything became silent again, I realized the house felt different, empty, cold, almost unfamiliar. I walked into the kitchen first. The table was still set for dinner. 2 plates, 2 glasses, the leftover soup she made for me. The place where our son usually sat was empty. The chair where my daughter always played with her hair while talking to us was pushed back slightly, as if she had just stood up. My heart squeezed painfully. This room used to be full of laughter, arguments, jokes, noise. Now it was just air. I tried calling Charlotte. Once. Twice. 10 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. I sent messages, long, desperate ones, but there was no response. I even sent a message to Martha, trying to apologize for my behavior. But it didn't deliver. She had blocked me. She disappeared just as quickly as she had appeared in my life. That's when the truth hit me. I had destroyed the only real love I ever had, for a fantasy that existed only in my head. I sat down at the kitchen table. My hands were shaking. I opened a bottle of whiskey and poured myself a small glass, then another, then another. It didn't make me feel better. It only made the silence louder. I kept staring at a family photo on the wall, me, Charlotte, and our kids at the beach last summer. Charlotte was smiling, her arm around me. The children were laughing, holding seashells. I looked at myself in that picture and wondered who that man was. He looked happy. He looked loved. He looked whole. Now I felt like I was made of broken parts. My thoughts turned into painful questions. Why did I do this? Why did I chase something so empty? Why did I hurt the person who stayed by my side when I was sick and weak? Charlotte took care of me when my lungs felt like they were burning. She worried, she cooked, she prayed for me. And what did I do? I betrayed her kindness. I betrayed our family. I wasn't in love with Martha. I was in love with the attention she gave me for a few days. I was lonely, vulnerable, confused. And I let that moment of weakness destroy everything. I put my head down on the table and cried so hard my chest hurt. The words came out of my mouth without control. I am sorry, Charlotte. I am so sorry. I lost everything. And for the first time in my adult life, I realized what true loneliness felt like. Not the loneliness of an empty room, but the loneliness of a man who finally understood the weight of his own mistakes. After that night, when the house fell silent and the weight of my mistakes finally settled into my chest, I knew I had two choices: drown in regret, or start climbing out of the hole I dug myself into. For the first time in weeks, I turned off my phone, not to avoid Charlotte, but to stop calling Martha. That chapter of my life had to end. She wasn't the problem. My weakness was. I sat down and wrote Charlotte a letter. Then another. And another. Not begging her to return, not blaming her for leaving, only apologizing, explaining, owning what I had done. I told her she deserved better than the man I was in those moments of foolishness. I didn't expect her to forgive me. I certainly didn't expect her to come home. But I needed her to know that I finally saw the truth. I also went back to the clinic, not to chase anyone, but to treat my pneumonia properly. My lungs were weak, and so was my mind. I started therapy, something I never imagined myself doing. The therapist told me I wasn't in love, I was lost, scared of aging, scared of illness, and I mistook attention for affection. Hearing that hurt, but it also opened a door inside me. I stopped drinking. I started jogging in the mornings, reading again, cooking simple meals. I tried to rebuild myself piece by piece. After 3 long months, Charlotte finally replied. She said she wasn't ready to come back, but she would allow me to see the children every other weekend. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't a miracle. But it was hope, small, fragile, beautiful hope. In that moment, I realized love wasn't the rush of a heartbeat or the spark of a stranger's smile. Love was loyalty. Love was patience. Love was the thing I almost lost forever. Now I understand that love is not about excitement. It is not about the sudden rush you feel when someone smiles at you. Love is about loyalty. Love is about the quiet, steady presence of someone who stands beside you when you are weak, sick, or afraid. For a long time, I confused loneliness with love. I confused kindness with affection. I confused my fears with my heart. Martha never tried to take me from my family. She never encouraged anything. She was simply doing her job, being polite, being human. The mistake was mine. The fantasy was mine. Sometimes we lose everything because we chase something that was never real. And I chased something fragile, something imagined, while the most real love in my life was right in front of me, Charlotte. The woman who cooked for me, cared for me, worried for me. The woman who rushed me to the hospital. The woman who held our family together until I broke it apart. The person who stays with you when you're sick is the person who truly loves you. I see that now with painful clarity. I don't know if my marriage will ever return to what it was. I don't know if Charlotte will ever fully forgive me. But I do know this, every day, I am trying to become a man my children can look up to, and a man my wife can trust again, whether she comes back or not. This time, I choose loyalty. This time, I choose love. If you liked this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for learning English through story with us. I hope you join me again in the next video.